In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
All right. It's another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix with yours truly, Bryce D. Nyer, coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg. Woo! Okay, that's right. Fort Bragg, located in my vicinity. Yeah, I got an airborne division, an airborne corps, and special forces, and those types protecting my neighborhood. What do you have? Anyway, we've got a heavy, deep topic tonight, and I'm going to talk about it. And I know that some of my friends have said I need to kind of lighten up a little bit on the subjects and the topics, blah, 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 whatever. So, no, not everything's doom and gloom, but here's reality. In the world today, it's on fire, it's in chaos, and you cannot duck your head in the sand. I'm not saying that you can't live. I'm not saying that you shouldn't enjoy things that God puts in our paths or on the planet, fellowship and all of that. But look, let's get real. The world's a mess. And so the topic we're going to talk about tonight, especially as it pertains to the law, the legal profession, or as I call it, the legal matrix, which it is what a lot of people just don't want to talk about. And let me tell you what they don't want to talk about, even though it's fought about since the beginning of time of Adam and Eve. Let's talk about God and the law. Yeah, nobody wants to talk about it. Like, oh, no, man. I don't believe in that. I'm spiritual. What the hell does that even mean, I'm spiritual? What does that even mean? People say, I'm spiritual. I'm like, oh, okay. And what does that mean? Like you're burning incense? I don't know. Yeah, you put a bone through your nose and shaking a chicken head? I mean, what does that mean? So the ironic thing about it is that I guess you can go back to, I don't know how many hundreds of years. You can look at the law back at the time of the creation of man, Cain and Abel, the 10 Commandments, when Jesus arrived on the scene and coming forward in time to present day. There's all this thing about, the law. And there's obviously, this thing about God and Jesus, depending on what your beliefs are. I just happen to believe that God is real, and I believe that Jesus is the Messiah, and he is who he says he is. And people have a problem with it. Well, I don't know what to tell you. You get to believe what you want to believe. Now, it doesn't mean that I've always done what I'm supposed to do, haven't always obeyed what the Almighty said or what Jesus said. In fact, many times I have not. But let me tell you something. I love the fact that, if you hear that noise in the background, that is my Labrador Retriever Drake, our beloved mascot. I don't know what he's doing, digging in the carpet. I have interrupted this podcast, but he's lovable and we love him. So, getting back to the topic and the subject at hand. Here's the deal. I go into court all the time, and they have people swear on the Bible or affirm to tell the truth. And the reality in the court system is just about everybody getting up there lies. They do. They just do. And I'm not the only one that feels that way. In fact, I remember years ago, our former chief district court judge, he's deceased now, but somebody was complaining in the court saying, he or she's lying. He said, everybody lies in here. And the whole court started erupting in laughter. It was funny, but it's true. And so everybody wants to sit there and invoke God and Jesus. And when they go to court and all this stuff, when it benefits them, or they use it as a spear to go against the opposing side, or a shield when they're being attacked. But in reality, then everybody just mocks and laughs at God, laughs at Jesus, and laughs at, the law. And the reality is in our country today, here in the United States, we have bastardized and twisted and spun the law so much. And we have kicked God and we have kicked Jesus out of all this equation, that we have soul anarchy. We are soulless. Our hearts have become so hardened at times, even mine, that we just ignore that conviction sometimes that's in us. And then what happens is we think that what we're doing wrong becomes normal. I've done that. It's not a good thing either. So you law students and you young lawyers, I mean, I'm going to tell you something. If you, again, and I've said this many times, if you think that chasing the almighty retainer fee and closing another client and all that is your ticket to fulfillment, maybe that's your heaven on earth. Let me tell you, hell's a coming. There's a storm coming. I've done this game and fought in these wars in the legal matrix for a long time. And to me, the legal matrix, there's nothing satisfying about it. You sit there and become soulless. You take God out of the equation. I don't care what people say. You're going to have a void in your life. I sit here all the time, and I'm in court and I listen to my colleagues. They're complaining about the same things they complained 10, 20, 30 years ago or a year ago. They hate what they do. And they just don't know how to get out of it. And that's part of what Escape the Legal Matrix is. That in these domains of body, of being, of balance, and business, you have to have a solid foundation and work at it every day. And if in the one domain of being is where the relationship of God comes in. Now, I get other people have different religious beliefs, or some have none at all. But I'm telling you, I'm here to say that when I sit here and I watch some of my colleagues that are drinking or doing drugs or sedating on porn or Netflix and stuff, and we've all been there in one of these sedations at some point, somewhere, or having affairs, or whatever the hell it is we're doing, we're sinning, there's a void. And then the ones that understand what it is to war against the legal matrix and have God in their lives and God in the courtroom, there's a different persona about them. There's just a different frame that they have, that they think. And I see the world right now. I mean, think about it. In the world today, and again, I get this subject is deep, but it needs to be discussed. You've got three major religions at war: Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. And that's the truth. And these three major religions, or ways of life, or ways of thought, however you want to phrase it, they're at war. They're in conflict, and it spills over into the courtroom because everything that's being done in this world is using the law, using a courtroom, using some sort of hearing or appearing before some board or something somewhere to where they're applying the law based on their belief system. Now, Judaism and Christianity are aligned because the majority of what the Christians call the Old Testament is really kind of the history of the Jews. And of course, the big distinction there is that most of the Jews do not believe Jesus was the Messiah and the Son of God, and the Messiah has not yet arrived. And the real Christians, they do. And then, of course, Islam, their big thing is, Sharia law for the most part. And in addition, they don't believe Jesus is the Messiah. They believe he's a great prophet, so on and so forth. And you have these three belief systems coming at each other in one form or another. And so we sit here now in the law, and a lot of people are like, well, I just don't believe anything. I'm agnostic, or I'm an atheist, and blah, blah. And again, I'm always amazed when the atheist goes suing everybody about Jesus and God. I'm like, why are you suing over a being that you don't even believe exists? So, explain this to me like I'm an 8-year-old, because I don't get it. You're suing over a belief system that you don't believe God or Jesus exists, but you're suing over this particular issue. So the reality is that in this legal matrix, God's in the mix. And he is. There's a war going on. There's a war between truth and lies and good and evil. I don't care what you say. You can say it all day long. But that's the reality. Everything you see on social media today, everything, Somebody's accusing somebody of lying, being deceptive, hiding this, stealing that. And the truth is, a lot of them are. They are. Our Congress, as far as I'm concerned, they're the biggest organized crime thief ring I've ever seen in my life. You look across the globe, all these world leaders, the elect, and all of the things that they have done over the history of humankind, and especially in the last 100 years and the last 20 years. And it's globalism, a one world order, all that stuff. And what are they using as their weapon of choice? It's the legal system. And you lawyers and you law students, I hate to tell you this, but you become the army of the Decepticons, of the delusionists. Yeah, you are. If you cave into the legal matrix. This is where I came to the crossroads. I couldn't stand it anymore. Could not stand it. I would just look up in the sky, look up toward heaven and go, what in the hell am I doing anymore? What am I doing? Because there comes a point as a lawyer where you're going to ask yourself these better questions about who am I, what am I doing? Am I living in truth? And I'm going to tell you something. If you're not bothered by committing sin, if you're not bothered when you don't live in alignment with God, if you're not bothered by that, your heart's hardened, and that's a problem. And people may laugh at this podcast, they may mock it. I don't, they do. But there's a couple things that are for sure. We were born, and we shall die, and everybody's going to know in the end what the truth is and what it's not. And all this pontificating these legal terms and walking in these courtrooms and arguing all these statutes and common law and all this crap. The reality is that, the courtrooms aren't filled with truth. They're just filled with spin, and they only invoke God when they seem to think it betters their posture or their position, but they're not living in truth and they're not in alignment. And I've done that. I haven't lived in truth. Not all the time. None of us do. The thing about it is you have to awaken to the fact that you're not doing it. And when you awaken to that fact, you have to determine what are you doing to correct it. There's a thing called redemption, a thing called repentance. Repentance being turning your life around and getting on the right path. And I think God's a lot more patient. Well, I don't think he is a lot more patient than human beings are for sure. Well, he's God. Like, he can do that. Because the way the world is, I'm just shocked. He just hasn't just like sent the lightning bolts down all over the place and just blown this planet to smithereens. And, that day's coming. The end of the world, the end of age, it's coming. People don't believe it. But you look at the signs, you read, you do your research, and you start looking around, you start listening. Then you go in the courtrooms, and all the courtrooms are a direct reflection of what's going on out there in society. That's the truth. The legal system, legal matrix is a direct reflection of what your world is. The issue is when you look in that reflection, are you in it? Are you in it? That's where I'm at in my life. People have asked me, what is the purpose of the legal matrix? Well, who are you trying to talk to? What's your message? And originally it was let's maybe law students to open, own, operate, and lead their own law firm in truth, build 1 million litigators across the globe to live and operate in truth. Then came the issue of, lawyers between 25 and 30, because in the ABA study, in the last couple of years, the highest age group of those contemplating suicide or hurting themselves were the under 30 group. Yeah, I know. I was just astonished in the survey they took. It was about 2,000 people. And there's 1.3 million active lawyers, but it was a sample. And it was telling. So, the reality is that when we don't live in truth, when we don't feel the conviction of sin or something we're doing wrong, we toss God out of the courtroom, out of our lives and everything, the reality is that there's a void. And see, that's what happened to me. There was just this void. I'm just not into material things. I'm just not a prisoner of the normal things. I don't know if they're normal, the things that typically capture a man or woman that can destroy their life. And clearly I've done some stupid things. Insane and stupid, dumb, poor judgment, caved to temptation, Not good. Not good at all. And it's sobering. It's sobering. So you got to ask yourself, where's God in the law? Where do we meet? Where do we meet? Because I'm gonna tell you, when man writes a law, it's clearly imperfect. And most of the time, it's designed to be self-serving. When you look at the executive orders that have been written by our presidents, when you look at the laws that have been passed, whether it's on the local level, the state level, or the federal level, well, I don't know. It's just really, really not. It's not great. It's really, really just not great. So you have to consider, where you're at in the world. You just do. Because if you're not careful, you'll end up void and empty. You'll be the walking dead, walking the planet with that 1,000-yard stare. And again, I know this is a heavy subject. I'm sure, people are going to say, oh man, that's really heavy. Couldn't you be more uplifting? I'm like, oh, okay. Why don't all right, I'll just go in here and come here and lie and say everything's just perfect, hunky-dory. And then it'll lead you down the path of destruction like a lemming going over the cliff. And that's where the world's at today. So for me, the purpose of the mission of Escape the Legal Matrix, hey, it's to wake you lawyers and law students up. Wake up. Look up. Start listening. Start seeing. Start realizing what the truth is. That's a battle. It's a battle for me. If it's a battle for me, it's probably a battle for you too. I'm not exactly sure where the legal profession is headed. All I can say is that I don't think it's headed in a great direction. And if we don't get men and women in there that live and operate in truth, and that includes me too, and we don't realign ourselves with God's purpose. And again, if you don't believe in Jesus, that's your bag. I do. I'm not sure why people make fun of him. He did a 3-year ministry walking around in sandals and a robe and, did some pretty great things. And, haven't stomped out his name 2,000 years later, so I don't know what to tell you. Empires have risen and fallen like Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, Genghis Khan, all them. But I don't know, him, Jesus, they haven't defeated him yet. Bible's still the bestseller. I wonder why. See, I don't think you can stamp out truth. You can cover it up. You can go in and lie. You can go into a courtroom and lie. Maybe you'll get caught. Maybe you won't. Judges lie too. They're not perfect. They're just humans. And quite frankly, I'm not really impressed with the judiciary in this country at all at the federal or state level. There's some great judges. There really are. There's some really decent judges on the bench. And then there's some that, I don't know, man, they're just soulless and they just sold out long ago. And so have a lot of lawyers. I think what happened is they got a void in their life and they filled it with something else. Lust for power, retirement, hell, I don't know. But that's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Somewhere at some time, each one of you law students, each one of you lawyers, you're gonna come to a crossroads. And you're gonna have to make a decision. And it's gonna tear your heart apart. It's gonna tear you apart. You're gonna lose friends, you're gonna lose family. You're going to have to make some tough choices. And you better be solid in domains of body, being, balance, and business. And if there's conviction in you, you're going to lose sleep. You are. You're going to lose sleep. Because that conviction in you, it's God pounding on your head, slapping you upside the head that you're on the wrong path. I know. I've been there. Nobody, like I said, a lot of people in the legal profession, they don't want to talk about it. As far as I'm concerned, a lot of them are just cowards. They're afraid. They're afraid to stand up for truth. They're afraid to say this is wrong. Instead, they'll go in and argue some of the most arcane, stupid stuff that they know is absolutely wrong. They know it's morally wrong. And yet, here we are. We still argue for things we know are just not right. For what? The retainer fee? Because we're scared people might laugh at us, mock us, that sort of stuff. And I just wonder, when did the legal profession become a bunch of lemmings? When did it become a bunch of cowards? When did that happen? What event or what day was it that happened that we just kicked God out of the whole legal profession? It's funny because it's so ironic. Like when new judges get sworn in, and you see the thing behind them, and they're on the bench, and God we trust, and they're trying. Of course, they try and tear that out, or they swear affirm, whatever it is they do, or even when lawyers get sworn in, they take an oath to the federal and the state constitution. Like the state and the federal constitution are going to be saviors. They're not. They're documents written by humans to hopefully preserve the what do we call it? The God-given rights of human beings and at least American citizens. And yet, most times in recent years, we've just trampled all over and spit all over it. And when you spit on truth, then you spit on God. And He's got a lot of patience, but His patience is going to run out. And one day, when all of us lawyers appear, final judgment, me too, there's going to be some really hard cross-examination going on. And we're all going to have to account for what we did or what we failed to do, what we said, what we failed to say. And I believe that to be true. I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. So, it's a heavy topic, so ask a better question. Where in your world, in the legal world, and as you hopefully fight against the legal matrix, you including God in the equation or not? You got a choice. Nobody's going to make you do it. But it's a subject that needs to be talked about. You better pay attention to the world events. You better pay attention to what's going on around you. The world's on fire. And this time it's not Nero lighting the fire. This is Bryce and Dyer coming at you again live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, where every day men and women don the uniform and go wage war against our enemies to preserve the freedoms that we so often take for granted. This is Bryce out.